Now, this is not me. So my name is Paul Manook. I'm here. And we are studying the letter of Paul to Philippi, the Philippians letter, St. Paul's letter to the Philippians. And it's an interesting one. But in order to establish how the church in Philippi started, so I wanted to explore his travels. Now, very interesting. You think in those days they didn't travel, they did. And you will see it as we go along, because I have a number of... I'm sorry, I'll be coming forward and backwards.
So that's do that for you.
Okay, darling, yeah, you can do that.
Which one do I press?
The arrow down.
The arrow down.
Okay. So that's it.
Go the wrong way.
Now this is to those who don't know. This is our logo, our church here, the community church here. This is our logo. Can you see that? We have the Irish Emmerich and the Armenian. And this is our logo was done by our friend Hovig. Is that right? So we are so grateful and with it. This is a very sort of Armenian cross which we like very much. Once again, thank you for coming along. And I'm so privileged that a number of you here. So very kind to listen to me. I'm not a good lecturer, but I hope I'll go through it. Okay, the next slide. Thank you very much. Now, the reason I want to talk to you about this king of ours. Now, nobody knew that I would be talking about this, did you? No. He is called King Dikran the Great, or in Armenian, Dikran Metz. And he reigned 95 to 55 BC. Now, you can say, now this is just for those who know the Bible, he is like David the king of Israel. You know, David reigned for about 40 years or so. He reigned about 40 years. And he was a very good king. Now, I'm not going Armenians past, whatever. I'm just wanting to take this one because that's important for what I'm trying to do, okay? So, he was, as you see, he was trained by the Parthians. Now, the Armenians and the Persians, they were always together. And he was in the Persian court, so the Parthians, and he was trained as a diplomat, as a military man, and as, if you can say, as a ruler. So he has really good education background and so on. I'm not going to tell you the details about it, that he was more like, he was hostage, but they trained him that way. So in his time, when he came his time to rule Armenia, and I will show you the map of it. In the time when the Seleucid, that's empire, which is really the Greek empire, is on the fall. You know, the Alexander the Great was divided into 4 leaders, and that area was Seleucid. And then also the rise of the Roman Empire, and that window we had Dikran the Great. And so obviously he filled the vacuum, and he effectively created and brought all that Armenia, greater Armenia he created. He was a very good king, and not only that, I must tell you this, that some of the kings, well, not kings, but rather people from Syria, Phoenicia, and all these, they asked him to come and rule over us. So you can see that he was a very good king. He was a just king, he was a fair king, and a compassionate king. And he was also, he loved science and technology, he loved knowledge, and so on. So he was a really, so if you want to go do more research on him, just type on the internet. The next one, and I will show you now the map. You can see that there. So if you can say that is so that is the greater Armenia of father started, and then in his time added all these. You can see that Mesopotamia and Syria, if you can say Cappadocia, Cilicia, and then even Judea. Now, you can see that, and I'm going to tell you that Armenians ruled for 3 years. Did you know that? We came to Palestine. Now, one of the things which is interesting one, that he took some Jews back to Armenia. Now, it's like almost slaves, but he said that you just come and you live in my country and prosper in my country. Sorry,
250,000.
yeah, quite a lot of them. He brought them in, and then they lived here freely. And this is what I want to say to you here. Now, being one say the Judaistic system, you can't change. Wherever they go, they will have their own, if you can say, synagogues. And they will have their own teaching schools and so on, and they will have their own community. So, and that's what I want to suggest, that there were quite a lot, and I hope that one day they will find in this area some synagogues. I don't know, but I hope that they will, because there was a lot of Jews in this area. And one of them, and this is what I will come back to, can you see here, Tarsos? It's called Tarson. He built that city to his desire. It was in fact, Tarsus, in the time of Paul, was, if you can say, like Cambridge, or like Oxford. It was a university center, and it was education, the rest of it. He was there, and he was Paul of Tarsus. So I'm going to come back to you. But you can see that they're all... Now, the other thing which I must tell you, if you go into the next... we'll come back to it, please, Daniel. Now, so that is, I said to you, spread. That is where the next one, obviously I'm taking... Thanks very much. Now, right. This is what I want to say further, is that in the Bible, in the day of Pentecost, if you read the book of Acts, right, chapter 2, it says that there were Parthians, Mede, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea. Now, could you go backwards one to the map there? Can you see that there? That's Judea. And he's talking about Cappadocia and Mesopotamia and so on. So that is not compatible. Go back to that again slide I'm talking to you about. Right? So that there, it doesn't match to this, what we call geography. It jumped to Judea. You can see that there. So Tertullian, one of the early church fathers, in year, I think, 150, 200, right, which he said that Judea must be Armenia. That is, and was approved, if you go back, next page, let me see, St. Augustine, and the next, here it is. Can you see that's Judea, as I said to you? And while it is talking about, it's not possible, so it would be Armenia. That's what, according to Tertullian, our early church fathers. Right, okay, the next one, and I'm going to say, St. Augustine St. Augustine is one of the early fathers, well known to all of us, who approved of Tertullian's argument that it should be of that of Armenia. So you can see what I'm trying to bring back, if you go back, can I go back to the map? Yeah. So what I'm trying to say now here, the Jews, quite a lot spread in this area, and in the time when Jesus was in Judea, right, we had another king at his time, is called King Abgar. Yeah? King Abgar, according to our historian Khorenatsi, Moses Khorenatsi, he has written that King Abgar sent a letter to Jesus, inviting him to come to his country, to say that I hear that your people don't want you, and you are doing lots of miracles, so please come, and you be free to move in my country. You are most welcome. It's a letter that he said. In fact, if you read the Bible again, the Gospels, it says that Greeks came to Jesus. Now, at this time, we had the language Armenian spoken, but the written was Greek and also Parthian, but Greek.
Just they use Greek only.
Yeah. So he then, obviously, the writing, when he says in the Bible that Greeks came,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Greeks came to Jesus, right, asking him, and so on. So that where, because the Armenians, right, when obviously came to this area, they will speak Greek to the people with the Greek writing. So they had no alphabet then. So it was the next one. Now I'm going to go back. So that we said that. So this is where we said that they have accepted. Now, the other thing which is obviously in that time, this is the time before St. Paul's travel. Obviously, there were Christians, or in that time of the spread of Thaddeus and all. So we had a number of people were persecuted. You can see that the Christianity was there. One of them, in fact, we will, if you go forward one more, and I will show you. We have here, for example, Saint Santucht. She was a Christian. And also we have Hirapsime and Gayane. These were martyrs of the early Christian, you can say martyrs of Armenia, and so on. So they were, so Armenians then, they were at the day of Pentecost, because they were so near. Plus the fact that people will come, because they have all the connection, as you have seen it, through Tikran the king. Now the reason I'm trying to say to you that Armenians were well versed in the Judaism, and with it they listened, they followed the Christian Christ's message. They must have. So that is where I call it hypothesis, because that is where you deduct. It's a deduction from these, where you see that they were. Now, the other thing, which is, it's natural, Armenians being hit by the Persians, and then the Romans or the Greeks and so on, so they scattered. And always when there is a scatter, either due to economy, either due to persecution, either due to whatever, people move. And that's natural. We see it today in Syria, in Iraq, in everywhere. You will see it. What's happening? People move from Africa. They do move. This is a well-known, concept that people do move, and with it, I suggest the Armenians moved. If you go back, let me see. That they moved, in fact, quite a lot. This area, even obviously to Europe. Okay, back again to the next one. Right. Now, having established that there must have been some Christians, Armenian Christians in those days of Paul. So Paul, will you go back down into, by the way, just I want to go to that map. Yeah. Now, here's, can you see that's Antiochia? That is Antioch. And I'm not going to tell you about how St. Paul was converted to Christianity. That is very, very, I would like you to read, would be, I think, chapter 5 or 6, but go Book of Acts. and you'll read it. It's a beautiful book. I encourage you to read. It's a lovely one. There's few Bibles there in Armenian and also in English. When he becomes a Christian, he then comes here and he started teaching. Now he's a graduate, I said, of Tarsus, and he started teaching the Bible along with Barnabas. And in that effectively the Holy Spirit, according to the book of Acts, asked to separate Paul and Barnabas to start and to evangelize effectively Asia Minor and to Europe. Next one, see that? Next, sorry. So that's where we see that there. So effectively the church at Antioch, they select best teachers, which is St. Paul and Barnabas, to spread Christianity or the Christian message to Europe. And so the first missionary journey they start, short one, but they start into first Cyprus, Salamis, Paphos. Very interesting. You must read it because it's very, very interesting. Really, it's this beautiful way of how they went through all these, ships wreck and the rest of it, all the difficulties they went through. But that is where they wanted to spread the Christian message. The next one, and I'll show you the map. Can you see this is here Antioch? So here, can you see? Okay, is that all right? It's not that clear, but that is Antioch, where they make their journey to Salamis and then Paphos, and then go to Perga, and then Padesia. Now, he doesn't go to Tarsus first, because you see that's a difficulty for him initially, as he just, if you can say, from Judaism he became a Christian, and he's a persecutor, he's everything and so on, but nevertheless he goes quite a short journey in this area, which obviously he must know, both of them know, because Barnabas is from Cyprus and so on. So they make that journey. Now in that journey, if you can say again, if you look at it there, Cilicia, and in fact Cappadocia in that area, so that was Greater Armenia. So these areas, that's first journey which he started, that would be sort of the roundabout. Again, if you read Acts chapter 13, it's more in the 54, 55 area, and it journeyed in that area. Now, the second one, the next, if we see the next journey, obviously when they come, they report to Jerusalem, and they were all delighted about all the news and how people believe in the Christian message. And so Paul starts his second journey. Now this time, you can see without Barnabas, like the rest of us sometimes, we fall with each other. And there was the falling between Paul and Barnabas over another one, a young man called Mark. And so they went to separate journey. But he started to taking all these, the Cilician plain and the mountains. You can see that the plateau. And so he goes to Galatia and Lystra. And there, obviously this first journey, Timothy was one Jewess. So he becomes a Christian, obviously, then from his first journey, and they move all the way. Now, if you go back to the map,
Forward to the map.
Forward. And you can see that the journey, here you are. Can you see, so obviously from Jerusalem, because he first came and reported to the apostles, and they had, if you can say, a meeting and a council. This is the first council of Jerusalem, if you want to know a little bit about church history. And there they had a council about circumcision and various things. But they went back to Antioch, and from Antioch started, can you see, he goes to Tarsus. And so you can see that, again, an area where Armenians and present. And this is what sometime I would like, and that's what I would like to do more research and find. We don't have really written documents at the moment. Must be somewhere whereby you have these somewhere hidden documents on the Armenian side of it. Because the Armenians, by the way, they had sort of Romans married to Armenians, and one of them was Herepsime, for example. One of the Roman Caesar wanted to marry her, and she didn't want, because she was a Christian, and so she didn't want to. She was persecuted and martyred. This is before Armenia in 301 became a Christian. So, but anyway, let me say to you. So all that area, you can see, even in the Turkish Ottoman Empire, was quite a lot of Armenians here, and so he went all that way. When he was then in this area of Troas, he saw a vision, and a man calling him to come over to Macedonia. And that's, again, go back and read Acts. It's a beautiful one. And so then he decided, that's it, we are moving to, you can see, to Macedonia. And then obviously the first thing he will hit is Philippi. That's what I want to talk to you about, Philippi. And while they were obviously walking, and first things he will go, as a Jew, enters into synagogue. Now all these areas, by the way, I should have said to you, wherever there is synagogue, he will go in. And he will speak about Christ and teach them about Christ. And from the Old Testament, because he's well versed. He was, his teacher was one of the top professors in Tarsus. And so he moves, he obeys the command, and he says, that's it, we are going there. And after coming out of the synagogue, as they walked, and so along the, was it beach or along the river, whatever, they saw a lady by the name of Lydia, and she's a businesswoman selling purple textiles and so on, and they had prayer meeting there. And so he meets with them, and with it he speaks the Christian message of salvation, that Christ came to die for us on the cross, and that is all what is written in the Old Testament. He goes about it, all details about it, obviously. And with it, then Lydia and a few others will believe. And they say, because if you accept me that I am a Christian now, you're welcome to come and stay, come into my house and so on, and eat, and then what. So after that, then, in this area, when he comes obviously with it, there's also another thing happens, and that is people start opposition here. And to cut the story short, he was put into prison. He and another one, Silas. And they were in prison, and at night where they were singing hymns and reading and praying, he said there was an earthquake, and the whole prison door opened, and the jailer was, the Philippian jailer here was frightened, and everything, door opened for him, and he said, don't worry, we are not going out, we're just, so he said, well, they are going to imprison me, what must I do? So then here the Philippian jailer becomes a Christian, and he and his family, it says, were baptized. And this is where the start of the Christian church in Philippi. In fact, it was nearly 5 years ago they discovered the church, which is very much like a synagogue in Philippi. The first church which was built. This is, I don't know, they go back to very early, but this was very much like. There are a few, by the way, like that in Armenia. Very few. They have discovered them. And so you can see that it comes back again, goes to, if you go back to the next one, I'm just going to show you that here. So it goes back, Lystra, and so let's go back to the next one. Please, I'm just, so here it is again. This is, and the next one, yeah, it is. So, all right, I've already said to you, so I'm not going to say it. And the next one, that's it. Now, again, I come back to this here, which is the Armenia bit. He must have, but obviously we don't have, because one is we had the language spoken, but all written in Greek. So we didn't have a Greek, or we used Greek, Aramaic, and also Persian. So that was because of the way Armenians were divided. In this area, the Aramaic, and this area is Persian, and in this area will be the Greek. Next one. So this is here we see, I think probably I have said to you this one here, baptized. Yeah, next one please. Looks like I'm talking for that. Right. Now go back again. I think I'm somehow, I don't know why I have that. So that is there, which we said that established the church, the jailer. He becomes. And now let me see. Go next one. I don't know why is there that one. Could you go next? Right. The reason I wrote to you. Could you go back to the map? Why? Yeah, next one. That's right. Why? No. Sorry, the one, the prison one. Next one. Yeah, that's it. This is the one. His journey, because he was imprisoned, and this is his first imprisonment. Again, if you want, it is in Acts 27. It's almost at the end of the book of Acts. The book of Acts is a beautiful book. Read it. It's all the how the church is growing and spreading. It's a wonderful. I know that not many people, but it is worth investigating and reading it to yourself. It's a very, very interesting book, because you will see there how they struggle various ways in imprisonment and various things. And obviously, Paul was imprisoned. Caught by the Jews in Jerusalem, and then moved to another city, I think in Sidon, whatever. And then from there on, they decided. He said, "I want to go to Caesar." So that's how you can see all this journey. It took him about 3-4 months journey when we normally do it in hour and 2 hours now these days. But that's how it was in a very shipwreck and the rest of it. But in all these areas, Paul also preached Christ and stopped and so on and talked to them about the Christian message. Right, the next one, I want to come back. Thank you very much. While he was in Rome and in prison, and this is where they think it is in Rome, because that's most of them. The letter to the Philippians is known as prison letters. And so one of them, or 3 of them, would be Colossians, Ephesians, and Philemon. Now, Philemon is a very, very personal letter. I love the letter of Philemon. It's a beautiful letter. It's a very, very personal letter. It's a one appealing for a slave called Onesimus. Onesimus, he was a slave to this Philemon, we call it Lord Philemon today, in today's language, and he was working for him, this slave, Onesimus, but somehow he decided that he would like to go to Rome. He's young, sort of 18, 20, so he robs his master, and he goes to Rome to enjoy, like today happens, run away. And so that exactly the same. You see, there's lots of similarities if you read today and in those days. The only thing, the style differs, and so on. He might have reached Rome a few months later. Today, people reach very quickly to London or to Dublin. So that where there, Onesimus meets St. Paul in prison, and he hears the good news of Jesus Christ, and he becomes a Christian, and with it he writes this beautiful letter giving him the example of Christ and us with God. And so the mediation of Christ, us, and God the Father. And exactly the same he does it between Philemon and between Onesimus. And so these are, I'm talking to you about it because I love this letter. It's a beautiful personal letter, lovely letter. And it is written probably in that region, 59, 61, because it speaks about, when you read again Acts, Philippians, he says that the guards and the Caesar's household and all, they are hearing about the message of Christ. So that's it. Right, the next one. I hope now
Watch your time.
watch my time here. Would you stop me?
It's 20 minutes left.
All right. Oh, turn it up, fine. Because I wanted to ask a question. Now, the reason for writing this letter, because Aphroditus, Aphroditus, the messenger, came to bring some help, some gift to Paul, being in prison, from the church of Philippi. This is what I like to hear. This is what I like this letter, because in a sense we can associate ourselves with, as a community, where we help a group in Armenia. Barakamavan, I don't know, to some who don't know you, don't know about it, we support some villages in the north of Armenia where very bordered and very, very difficult circumstances, and from the community here we send every year some help and support to them. And so this is where he brought some help, but unfortunately he fell sick, and they were the people in Philippi were quite worried, about after this, and so and eager for him to return back. And so that's why he writes them this letter to them and send it with Aphroditus. Okay, kind of the next one, let me see. I will go back very quickly this one again, just to show you his third journey. This one is the third journey. Okay, let me go back. You can see again he comes back to Jerusalem, goes from Antioch, and again goes to Tarsus and so on. You can see these areas. He wanted to go to Spain, he said, but obviously couldn't. But this is his third journey. Again, you can see that his interaction with Armenians.
Excuse me, was this before or after his journey to Rome?
This is that is the prison, after prison to Rome, after imprisonment.
So he got out of prison and then
Out of prison, that's right. He got out of prison. Thanks very much for helping me out. Out of prison, and he does it his third journey. Okay, next one, please. Let me see. That's what. Now, the content of the letter, obviously, is their love. The Philippians, the church in Philippi, their love and confidence. They were taken by the Christian message, and they helped and support Paul in prison, and he was very thankful for them, full of joy in it, and with it also you have this in it, that grace of Christ, and all the themes comes on, and it's a beautiful one, and also on Christ as our model. Now I'm going to go back to the next one, please, and I think I'm going to stop here, because this is here. This is where I think we will explore, because there are, for example, as a community, you see, they were full of charitable work. This is very, very like the Christian ethos that came in to help out, whatever it is. I remember reading in the early church fathers' history, whereby when the Romans came to arrest them, the soldiers, and so on, and they went into the house and they saw lots and lots of ill, for people whom rejected, people don't want them. And here you are, the Christians looking after them, effectively like hospital. And so the soldiers went back and said, we don't want to arrest these people. They are doing this wonderful work. Why should we? So they went back. And some of them, with that way, they became Christians, the Roman soldiers. And there's another one in this letter. This is a beautiful letter. I said it is a very, very important one. I would have gone and read to you a bit about the one which says, never do anything out of selfish ambition, of selfish things, but rather help out one another. In other words, it becomes a community in which help each other, support each other, and with it guide and lead. And also in this one here is our obviously our faith to grow. That's what here is, and he encourages them to grow in faith, and also our living to be of Christ-like. There's one thing which I love when he speaks about that though he was rich, he became poor for our sake. That through his poverty we become rich. It's beautiful. That's about Christ. And then our obligation as people, what do? As I said, that's one of the things which we hope to cultivate. I think that's the last one, I'm not sure. Right, there you are. So there's salvation in Christ, that's important. Christ is our model, and the charitable giving, and hope that sometime we will talk about giving, that we give. Why we give is in order to help and support those who are in need, and those who are in, there's lots of things in church history where we see people started, like for example, I don't know if you know it, Bernardo's, right, started with someone who, I think he was baptized, isn't it? So the vicar of St. Werber told us, isn't it, Danny?
He was
Baptized there in Dublin. He was the one who started this wonderful charity work of looking after children. And there are others who are on slavery and so on. There are of those who started nursing, those who, for example, Cadbury, I don't know if you know, some Cadbury chocolates, they have started of building houses for poor people and their workers. It was very... What's that?
They were Quakers.
Yeah.
Quakers,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So these are things. And then there's another one which is, as I said, we will deal with a bit of Christian ethics later on, and maybe one day we will invite Professor Bagdamian a little bit to talk to us on ethics. And then we have, this is in ethics-wise, as our personal life, ethics, what we do in our conduct, family ethics, together as a family, and then work ethics, and then community ethics. These are very interesting as we explore this letter. I don't think that's the last one, I think. Oh, that's it. Thank you. Thanks very much indeed. I hope I've given any other questions? Yes, John.
Thanks a lot, Paul, for this nice presentation. I was very interested about the letter from King Abgar
Yes.
to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I wonder, of course, the indication in Bible about that Greeks came to Christ, it's interesting, but I think it's very low evidence that it were Armenians actually, just because we were using Greek letters.
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
So I was wondering
No,
if there's
there's
any more.
two things, Harold, sorry.
Yeah.
Using Greek letters, but to write Armenian sentences.
Yeah, but was it mentioned in the Bible that is my question. Is there any
Yes.
more kind of evidence that there were actually Armenians, or is it just saying Greeks?
No,
No.
but Khorenatsi speaks about. That's what he wrote, which is
He
right.
didn't write until
No,
the
4th century, 5th century. So obviously the idea was there, it was going about. I believe it, because there are lots of things happened which would talk. For example, all the miracles and so on, all that taking place that Jesus has done, was repeated throughout. So, and I think the similar thing will happen. That's why I love to do research. I love to do postgraduate studies on this subject, which is Armenians, because at the end, if you look at that, Greater Armenia has quite a lot of influence. And who knew? Did you know that Armenia has about 3 years in Judea, Palestine? No.
Yes.
So that was. You knew.
Is there any actual written letters which they use Greek alphabet?
No, this is what
But
Yeah, yeah.
contents ordinary English. Is there any?
I don't know.
If you can find one, that would be good.
What? Sorry, letters in terms of what? Letters to Jesus or? Oh, all right. Oh, I see. I don't think there is. I haven't come across.
That's why Harut says it's
Yeah.
next thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's very interesting
but that
topic
was-
for
that was
research.
a
actually.
use.
That could be your PhD.
I would love to. I said I would love to explain. I have lots of things in my old age. I'd love to do brain biology. I'd love to do history. I'd love to do lots of things.
No, Paul, I think it's very, it has priority, because if you can make correction in Bible, so
No, but that is where I think that's where it is geographically it's right that Tertullian has spoken about. But sometimes some of the people do attack Tertullian because he was a little bit what you call anti-Jews, because he felt that the Jews those days they were betraying. Remember our bishop when he talked about the communion, about how they met together and so on. And the Jews, they thought they would be drinking blood, real blood and so on. And so they used to say these guys kill people and drink their blood. So that was it. Yeah. So it was, yes.
I didn't know anything about these early martyrs. You said these three names. Yes. Never heard about them at all. Are they all three women? Or
3 women, yes.
Three
Yeah.
women.
But also there were men, but unfortunately there were men. Unfortunately, you see, there is a problem. I'm going to tell you something about it. Because Armenians always under occupation. This is a very important one, people to know. Armenians were all either under the Romans or under the Persians, and then afterwards the Arabs. Arabs. The Muslims came, and then Russia, but that was the last. And then came the Ottoman and so on. So they were all the time under occupation. So they never ever were able to dig in and keep and record. And we thank God only for a Nazi who has written a little bit about our history.
But what relevance is that to the only woman? The lady asked why
No, that's what I said.
men
It's because of the fact
I find it even more remarkable that they actually kept the record about 3 women.
Yeah.
And then your neighboring country, Georgia, there's also a woman, Saint Nina, who actually converted Georgia to Christianity.
Yeah.
So that is amazing, given the fact that in the New Testament and also in much of other texts, women are actually either left out or suppressed or not mentioned or whatever. Yeah. So in this area, obviously, there were a lot of women active.
Oh yeah.
Is there any study about
Yes.
this? Why?
Yes.
There's a guy doing a PhD, and he's actually lecturing in a couple of weeks' time in London, David Kerdian, and he's doing a PhD on the role of women in the Armenian church.
Armenian Christianity through women.
Through women. Yeah.
It says in 2 weeks' time in London by the Armenian Institute. But very interesting. I think the reason our history hasn't been well documented because we've been tossed and turned by waves with various, Tatars. Tatars came and did a lot of damage. The Seljuks, they have done. and so on. So it was quite sad history really for us. But nevertheless, I think throughout these...
Is that yours?
I think that must be...
Same as
Who is this for? So, throughout these, for example, the Armenian patriarchs, and so on, they moved their places because of the persecution, because of the attacks on them, and so on and so forth. But they were faithful to their Christian faith. Yeah.
I have another point to make. When I came across Armenia, that was last year, I went to Clonmacnoise with a group of tourists because I work as a tour guide. And then I explained the crosses there, the cross of the scriptures in particular. And when you look at these crosses, they have a lot of figures on it, like kings and of course the founders and Chiron and so on. But particularly on the sides, you have lots of ornaments. And this was a particularly interested group, and they had just been to Armenia before that. And then they said that these so-called living crosses in Armenia, they have some similarities with early Celtic or early Irish crosses. And they, for example, there is a kind of egg-shaped ornament at the side of the cross of the scriptures, and they were saying that you could find similar symbols in Armenian crosses.
Yeah.
So that is the next question. Is there any link?
Yeah.
Oh yes, there is a
Fourth and fifth
lot of
century.
studies being done on that.
There's quite a lot of studies being done about the link between the crosses. Yeah. And they reckon that there were actually people coming back and forth in the 4th, 5th century.
Yeah.
Not just from Egypt,
No,
but also
from
Armenia.
In fact, that's why I always feel very strongly that people laugh at me when I say, I'm very sure St. Patrick met with Armenians.
No, you told me last time you said St. Patrick was an Armenian.
I don't change my mind, but that's what I would love to. Because because you see, my thing is because I studied correlation and systematic and so on, so I always correlate events, correlate. You have to look at it. Any questions?
What about some coffee?
Yeah. Now, one of the which is hopefully we will explore certain of the letters, and I'd like to. Hopefully, we'll invite people. For example, I like to talk on giving. That's why we give. In the church, we make church collection and we send it to people who are in need and so on. So these are we will talk about family life and so on, church life, community life, helping each other. But naturally, we will talk about our Christian faith, what's all it entails and what's all about. And that is Christ and Christ alone. What's that? Well, next on the 23rd, on the 23rd we have Bill. I can't pronounce his surname. Bill is the ombudsman in Ireland, right? He's an American, and he's going to give us a talk and his impression